Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to another topic discussion. As today I want to talk a little bit about submarines in World of Warships. It's been a while since I've had this discussion regarding submarines in World of Warships, and the last video I made, it got a lot of views, and I went through all the comments. I read people's thoughts, their input, whether they agreed or disagreed with some of the things that I shared about submarines. And I totally expect that not everyone will agree with my opinions or my thoughts. And I've had some more time to reflect. I've been waiting to make this video for a while. I've had a lot of players ask me, hey Flimsy, can you make videos on upgrading commander build of the different submarines? And that's been a challenge because Wargaming keeps changing the submarines. They haven't got them to a final state yet for me to really begin to do that, besides a very general overview one I gave, which that one's already outdated with more of the changes Wargaming has done last year with submarine testing. So I want to reference the submarine results of testing in random battles and the further plans and this was an article they had the end of December, and then circle back to some things I've stated previously, but also in the light of more testing that Wargaming has done. So this article or dev blog, I will throw it up in the description if you want to read and check it out for yourself. It's really long. What I want to do is just look at the brief summary they gave and then the general testing progress. So first off, they state, we would like to share more information about submarine testing, to comment on their current status and results of changes in more detail, and share some future plans with you. Brief summary. The changes made in 0.10.10 and 0.10.11, splitting subs torpedoes into two types and changing the torpedoes guidance, have improved gameplay and interaction of the new class with surface ships. Even taking into account the lifetime of submarines, which is comparable to destroyers and cruisers, other indicators of subs combat effectiveness are significantly inferior to other classes, meaning they want to improve this. Since 0.10.10, the average damage caused by submarines has decreased by about 25%. We'll try to find other ways to increase the influence of submarines in combat, but we will not completely rule out the possibility of improving torpedoes if other options will be ineffective. With some of the changes that Wargaming has had, torpedoes were more powerful, and then they ended up nerfing torpedo damage a little bit, but now, it's kind of now the possibility that they might increase the damage of them again. Or even just the lock-on capabilities. While in 10.9, submarines were close to destroyers in terms of spotting damage, now new class is roughly comparable to cruisers in this regard. Submarines at tier 10 currently have roughly the same popularity as aircraft carriers, but slightly less so at tier 6 and tier 8 tiers. But we do not expect a significant change in popularity at tier 10, but we expect a small increase at lower tiers. Based on the results of 11.0 public tests, we realize that the planned changes do not lead to the desired result. Submarines remain insufficiently effective compared to other classes. So the challenge here is Wargaming is trying to figure out, how do we make submarines more effective when they are comparing them alongside the other classes of destroyers, cruisers, battleships, carriers, because there is a noticeable gap there. And so Wargaming's challenge is try to figure out how can they ultimately reach their desired results and the plane changes. Because, I'll circle back to that in a minute. We have decided to temporarily stop testing submarines on the main server in order to prepare additional changes. From version 11.0, which is the current update, until the beginning of 0.11.2, submarines will not be on the main server. In 0.11.2, we plan to resume submarines testing with additional improvements to their mechanics. Okay, so those were the brief points that Wargaming had made in this development blog. And then they go on, this is just 2 paragraphs on general testing progress. We understand that testing a new class on the main server may be inconvenient, and we would like to thank you for playing submarines, playing against them, and for your feedback. Unfortunately, only real battles on the main server provide so much data and opinions to bring the mechanics of the submarines and their counters to the point where they can be introduced into the game on a regular basis. We're happy to see from your feedback and stats that the changes made in 10.10 and 10.11 have improved gameplay interaction between a new class and surface ships. With both the changes already made and the upcoming changes to submarines and their associated mechanics, we want to achieve a gameplay that is balanced and interesting for both sides, in which the key objective of the new class is to attack the enemy from unexpected positions at unusual timing. And this is, I think, the following sentence is really important because we believe it is most important to make the interaction between submarines and surface ships, quote, healthy, but at the same time that submarines are not too weak. And they go on in this devlog and they have a bunch of different inputs that they give, graphs, so on and so forth. And one of the really interesting things that they said was that when they are tracking the indicators of the distribution of battles according to damage inflicted, submarines have a much higher number of battles without any damage dealt than other classes. For example, 32% of Submarine Games are without any damage at all, compared to 13% for destroyers on Tier 10. Now, I had a battle I featured where I got no damage in the submarine. I did a solo cap, I believe it was, because the enemy team was just completely falling apart. I wasn't able to get any damage in. So when you're looking at this chart, they have an article. It's really high in terms of, how long, the class that does this 0% damage. 32% compared to destroyers at Tier 10 being 13%. And one of the things I think with that point in particular relates to maybe blowout matches. So when I say blowout matches, most of you should probably know what I'm referencing in saying that there are battles. I mean, I had 3 battles on Thursday night, back to back to back, complete blowout matches. The enemy team, much better than my team. And I'm not blaming my team, but it's almost the unbalanced matchmaking being a really big problem, where you have these blowout matches and having games that end in less than 10 minutes, which was the case of those battles on Thursday night. So, does that even correlate with submarines having such a high number of 32%, where they go an entire game without any damage at all? But circling back to talking about the planned changes that they have had, they don't lead to their desired result, that submarines remain insufficiently effective compared to other classes. I think it's really hard, if I'm being honest, and I think we see this from even what Wargaming has stated, to make submarines comfortable to play, 2, their interaction between surface ships and them as submarines being an underwater ship is really hard for them to reach that, right?
Torpedoes to starboard.
It's for me, it's just been interesting kind of watching this progress with as much testing as Wargaming has done in World of Warships in 2021. I mean, there was testing of submarines, there was testing of super ships in random battles, kind of like not being able to play a regular game almost to a certain extent without there be some sort of testing going on. Now here in this clip, one of the reasons I wanted to share this was to talk about how Wargaming wants to achieve that healthy interaction between surface ships and submarines. Because, they talk about submarines attacking from, good positions, unusual positions, attacking at unusual times. And there has been this submarine that has been just harassing these ships on this flank. Our Montana was AFK. I'm detected now, and I know that there's a submarine around here somewhere, but I'm just not sure where. But that this submarine right there is able to pop up on my broadside. So I don't know if he had his hydrophone activated, which kind of gave away my location. But I have to cut the throttle here and turn in, or it'd be a dove strike. Now this, honestly, I think submarines do really good at just surfacing, making an attack, and then going back underneath the water. But for me as a surface ship player, it's really frustrating because there's 5 of us here and we can't kill this submarine. I mean, it's, to me, that's kind of mind-blowing, and I'm being partly realistic and also joking in chat that, wow, I hate subs. And so this other player in the Vermont in front of me is going to say, but they are so easy to kill. And so my response is, well, why is this one still alive? And to which he responds, because we are all dumb. Really soundproof argument there. Because I've been watching this YouTube channel called World of Warships Best Replays. And what I see players do really effectively in the class is to sneak in to behind enemy lines and just create a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, and a lot of damage to enemy ships. And I see it's usually the U-2501, the tier 10 German battleship submarine, that does the best at this. Getting over 200,000, 200k damage games, 250, 260, just because they go in behind enemy lines. Most ships are kind of moving to the flank, so usually these subs they might move up a flank undetected, or they just go up the center. And they tend to take out the enemy aircraft carrier because that's just a lot of free damage to get right there. But the way they do it is that they'll stay surfaced, and then they slowly go beneath surface as they get closer to the target. They dump all their torpedoes and dive. Or they'll use the hydrophone, and then they come up, they dump all their torpedoes, kind of like how that Bilal was doing to me. And then they immediately go back underwater. So it's frustrating because, you can only do damage with your artillery when they are 20 meters and up. And then you have to go, for us, there's no destroyer. So the Vermont player, he made a good point, there's no destroyer players that can just do a drive-by or drive over them, dump a bunch of depth charges off the ship. Or for us, it's just the depth charge airstrike to be able to get any damage on that submarine. And I think Wargaming has made some really good decisions, like that they added depth charge airstrikes to practically all ships in the game. The fact that they didn't do that before was really infuriating to me. And I will give Wargaming credit when credit's due, but it's been a very challenge, I think, for them to reach this desired result that they have in mind, which could be completely different than what a lot of us as players have in mind, right? And I think there is a lot of doubt in the player base because, the player base has been pretty upset with Wargaming. The majority, not all, with how Wargaming has handled multiple things. And I think a lot of people say, in the previous video that I had made on submarines, it's just like, oh, you just don't like change, so on and so forth. It's not that I don't like change. It's a matter of having confidence if Wargaming is actually able to implement submarines into World of Warships well. So the main point I had made in that video, and that I still stand by this, is that I really feel like submarines should be kept in their own battle mode. So when we had the testing, they had Submarine Battles, right? And Submarine Battles was humans versus human ships. It wasn't filled by co-op team members or bots, sorry. But it was humans versus humans, and players could choose whether or not they wanted to interact with submarines. Where when they're forcing them in ranked and randoms and so on and so forth, it feels like they're forcing a class onto the player base, where majority of them don't necessarily want them. Now, I do acknowledge that there is a portion of the player base that really wants submarines in World of Warships. When you think back to, this has been, I don't know how many years ago, but there's a video where basically they're talking with one of the, I don't know if he's a developer or someone could probably link this video even in the comments, where they say that submarines will never be in World of Warships, that they fundamentally don't fit into the design of the game. And then several years later, they make the announcement, and it was back in 2017, 2018, that submarines are coming, and we're 2022, and that still hasn't come to pass yet. And I think that it really gets that with all the testing Wargaming has been doing, that fitting submarines into World of Warships, in particular their interaction with surface ships, has been really difficult and really a challenge for them to achieve that in a good way. I even know of testers who have been really frustrated with having to play submarines in World of Warships, and just feel like it's kind of like they're not getting anywhere. Like, this has been a class that they've been taking a really long time with. I mean, granted, I don't know how much time Wargaming spent when they implemented aircraft carriers, and then they had the Great CV rework. That was right when I started playing World of Warships. But I will say, I'll give a thumbs up to Wargaming that they are taking this much time to try to focus on achieving a healthy balance in the game between submarines and surface ships. I think that is a good thing, but the fact that this has gone on so long gets at the point that it seems Wargaming doesn't know how to make that happen, right? I mean, there's been so many changes to submarines over and over and over and over again, that it's like, it's almost kind of, it feels like they are just shooting in the dark, hoping to find the correct way to make submarines work in World of Warships. I mean, maybe that's being a bit unfair, but to me, as a player that's just been kind of watching this unfold, that's what I've experienced. I mean, now Wargaming removing submarines from playing for 2 patches. I mean, I didn't see any players that were, I don't know how to phrase this, really sad. A lot of what I was seeing was that a lot of players were celebrating, yay, no submarines in World of Warships. I mean, I'm in multiple different World of Warships Discord servers. I'm on several different World of Warships Facebook groups. And then, I would see a player here and there saying, where are the subs? When are they coming back? Kind of being frustrated, and I want to play them because, there are people who really enjoy playing submarines, and that's great. But it's been really hard for Wargaming to achieve this balance, and they acknowledge that, right? Because of how much time they've been taking to figure out and reach this desired result that they have in mind. Now, the question is that desired result match what players also, majority of players also view as a desired result? So it's been, going back to the testers, when the testers are saying, they see submarines, they don't fit in the framework of the game, and these are coming from testers, and even some community contributors have been really frustrated about it. To me, it's rather telling. But, for me, as a World of Warships player, a small World of Warships YouTube content creator, I really think that Submarine Battles, having the own game mode battle type, that to me is a win, because in my mind, you're making players happy on those who don't like submarines, and then those who do like submarines, they're getting them in the game, right? But I think, the question becomes is, if you only have submarines in a Submarine Battles game mode, are there enough human players to populate playing surface ships in that game mode, right? And then if there isn't, one, that would be frustrating for a submarine player who just wants to play the game and they have to wait 4 or 5 minutes in queue before a battle finally drops. But 2, that should be a telling sign that people don't enjoy playing against submarines in surface ships, right? So is that game mode struggling because of that? And so then Wargaming doesn't really have the choice, but they have to look at putting them in randoms, ranked, and clan battles. I don't know if that will happen. I hope not. But they have to implement them, because Wargaming, what helps any game company succeed, is having constant content. So Wargaming is really good about constantly producing content all the time in the game that keeps you busy. I mean, basically, it's an everyday grind, right? And for some players, that's a lot because, only players who can really play on the weekend, they are always behind in that sense. I've been following those who maybe enjoy Halo, the game, Halo Infinite. They have been struggling because they introduced the game and they have not had enough content to keep up with players. Like, they've lost over 100,000 players just playing the game on a regular basis because there's not enough content to keep players interested, because players have done everything in the game. And it's like, well, I have nothing else to do, nothing else to work towards, so I'm just going to take a break and play something else. I'm not going to play Halo Infinite. And so that has been a challenge for, Microsoft Series 343 Studios. I'm really spacing if that's the ones who actually oversee it now or not. But it's been a challenge for them, right? So Wargaming gets that. We have to keep producing more content in the game, but also Submarines is it's another ship type for them to sell as premium ships in the game, right? So as a gaming company, they have invested so much into Submarines that at this point they need to make them work because of how much cost has been invested in this, so on and so forth. Now, on topic of Submarine Battles, also thinking about, I can see Submarines being really great in operations. Not so much saying the current operations, but operations that revolve around maybe new op modes, right? Where you, as a submarine player, have to attack a convoy. You have to sink a couple of ships, right? And you're in a wolf pack with maybe 2 or 3 other submarines players. Maybe it's you have to sneak into an enemy base, and you have to sink a certain battleship and retreat out as a convoy meets up with you and you're being chased by enemy ships, right? So I feel ops being a really great place for submarines. Now I know, if I remember correctly from a development blog I had read, Wargaming is working on making an underwater map for submarines in several of the current ops. I think Killer Whale was one of them. Not sure what else. I mean, Norai would be off limits since they don't have tier 7 submarines at this point in time, because I really like Norai. But I feel like there's a lot that Wargaming can do with embracing the class and how it's meant to work. And I think players, these ones who are submitting replays to World of Warships Best Replays on YouTube, they get how submarines work. They're this really, they ambush, they cause issues behind enemy lines where surface ships can't go. I mean, I can't sail in a battleship into the enemy spawn because I'm just going to get focused down, I'm going to die quickly, but a submarine can. It can go and cause a lot of chaos. It can take out the enemy aircraft carrier, probably take out a battleship cruiser along the way even, and be a big distraction for the enemy team that's trying to fight on the flanks. So, for me, I'm saying all that seems to be how submarines are working. Now, the question is that enjoyable for players, surface ship players, when submarines play that? So it is a real challenge. Now, I'll give that to Wargaming. It is a really challenge. But I feel like there's several ways to help submarines fit into the framework of the game. And I question how much do they really fit. Do they really work in randoms, ranked, or co-op as an example? I've kind of been thinking of it being as it's trying to hammer a square into a circle, circular hole. But at the same time, it seems Wargaming, I will give them benefit of the doubt to a certain extent. But they have been taking a lot of time in trying to make submarines be healthy in the game and for the game. So now for me, it's not that I don't like change in World of Warships. It's more of do I have the confidence in Wargaming to achieve this healthy balance of submarines between surface ships in this new class. So that is, I think, where I really want to land that video on. I'm not so much negative towards submarines. I mean, I have enjoyed playing battles right now without submarines, if I'm being honest, just because I think for me it's been frustrating previously when submarines have been on the main server because Wargaming hasn't figured out how submarines work in World of Warships yet, right? So it goes back to even them saying several years ago that submarines don't fit into the framework of the game. And now they're trying to make them fit, make it work, because it is more content to introduce into the game as a gaming company, as an arcade game. So we'll just have to see how Wargaming moves forward with this. So I'll link the dev blog I was reading from. There's a lot of information that you can read in there on interaction of submarines in the game in comparison to other classes. Because again, the verbiage Wargaming likes to use a lot is they want to make the class comfortable. I mean, even with the new super carriers, they're like, well, we're going to make these changes to make them more comfortable. Wargaming uses that phrase a lot, and I kind of wonder, is that good or is it bad depending on the context? So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd be really interested to know how you as a player, whether you dislike submarines, you like submarines, or you're in between, how you have been feeling about Wargaming implementing submarines into World of Warships, and giving your thoughts and opinions. So because I think it's good for us to have, as a community, to have good, healthy conversations, not ones that are really biased and judgmental, but that we can respectfully have conversations. about a new class being introduced into World of Warships, and just seeing how Wargaming, if they're going to handle it well or not. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you are subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And until next time, take care.